It's social distancing at the chamber. My name is Garrick Taylor. This is a segment we call Happy Hour with Hammer, joined by the CEO of the Arizona Chamber, Glenn Hammer. Glenn, an old friend joining us today. Why don't you introduce our special guest?
Well, it's great to have Lisa James with us. Lisa is one of the great policy, public relations, and political pros in this state. And one of the things that I always appreciate about Lisa is that she puts her heart and soul into the work. And I just want to thank you and commend you on behalf of the Arizona Chamber of Commerce and Industry and the business community for really the great effort that you've led on the No on Prop 207 campaign.
Thank you, Glenn and Garrick. And it's great to have the support of the Chamber on this No on 207 effort. So we appreciate it.
So maybe if you could just jump right in. We've put out some materials as to why we believe this is a bad idea on the business side. Making sure that we have a healthy workforce, making sure we have safe roadways, all very important, but there's a lot more to unpack in Prop 207. Can you maybe run us through the highlights as to why voters should reject this proposition?
It will be my pleasure. So as you know, it's 17 pages of really self-dealing. So it was written by, funded by, and it's really going to benefit a very small but wealthy organization of the big marijuana industry. So they've written this to limit competition, to ensure that they will have a customer base and protect that customer base. And really what our concerns are is that it's going to affect our children, it's going to affect our roadways, and it's going to affect our economy. And as you know, in Arizona, we have voter protection, which always sounds like a great idea until something intended or unintended comes up that the voters don't care for, but we're locked into the bad policy. We're looking at, they've taken away a standard of impairment measure that has been an effective deterrent for Arizona roadways. That's why I think you find the troopers and the sheriffs and the county attorneys and multiple law enforcement groups that have joined with us on this No campaign. They've made it very concerning for employers to be able to find an unimpaired workforce in the future, not to mention the legal ability of whether, that comes with testing and the employment lawyers that we've spoken to and the litigation where that might end up. And the potency of today's marijuana is very concerning for our children.
One of the arguments we used last time around 4 or so years ago was that this is an experiment. A number of states were looking at full-blown legalization and allowing for recreational marijuana. So we have some more experience with the Colorados and the Washington states of the world. Can you talk a little bit about that? How those efforts panned out?
So absolutely. And we find that in these states, they promised the black market would go away, and that's not happening. The black market is thriving in states where recreational legalization exists. They told us that it would be an economic boon, yet in Colorado, there's a study showing that they're spending $4.50 for every dollar they take in on marijuana-related expenses. And then we're finding that the roads are indeed filled with impaired drivers, and more people are testing and accidents are occurring where people have THC in their system. So these are big problems. We also find that in those states that have legalized in the West, the total dollars taken in compose less than 1% of the state's budget. So it's not an answer to economic woes of any state, and it won't be for Arizona either, because they've gone even further in Arizona, capped a tax, which means that no matter what it costs, if it costs us more, we can't tax it more. We're locked into it.
And isn't there even a provision in there that if the feds come in and tax marijuana, that would actually even reduce the funds available on the state level?
Correct. So they've capped the overall tax at 30%. So if the feds decide to legalize it, we know darn well they will tax it. And so that tax will come out of that 30%, further reducing Arizona's take for that. In addition, in other states, cities and towns are allowed to opt out. And there's a provision in this Prop 207 that implies that you can do that. However, the devil's in the details, and right underneath it, it goes on to say, unless you have medical. Well, a lot of cities and towns, and especially the major cities and towns in Arizona, said just 10 years ago, okay, we agree, we should have medical available for our citizens. But they had no idea they were also going to be locking themselves into now having to provide recreational as well. It's a big problem for local control.
Yeah. Lisa, 4 years ago, the business community argued that this was a bad deal for employers. The proponents this time around, they say that they've addressed all those concerns, but your campaign has said, not so fast. So what's going on?
Well, exactly. So they like to say that they've worked with the business community, and I think look no further than we've got people like the Arizona Chamber, the Surprise Chamber, Southern Arizona Leadership Council, all coming together and saying, no, this is not a good idea for our workforce. And again, the labor attorneys we've spoken to said that at best, this language will end up in expensive litigation for employers. So we know that in states that have recreational legalization, more people are using, more people are impaired, and that is not helpful to our workforce.
Yeah, one of the things that we struggled with 4 years ago was, Lisa, let's say you're just the biggest civil libertarian in the world and you say legalize it. What do you do if you're an employer in Arizona who has a federal contract and you play by the rules of the road of the feds where the substance is still illegal? Doesn't that set up a contradiction? And I don't know if that has been settled in this measure. I don't find the proponents' arguments compelling. To keep in mind I'm biased, but I think you've pointed out a lot of this contradiction that it sets up between states and feds. It's a real concern.
Absolutely. So it still remains against federal law, which is a big problem for multiple reasons, for not only for employers, but for banking reasons. And the idea is that here we look at big employers here like Boeing and others that are providing federal contracts, and they won't be able to have this unimpaired workforce that they need, these quality workers that they need. So one of the issues is that it says you can still test at your workplace, which you can. However, it does nothing to stop people from using before or after. So otherwise, while they're not on your property. And that's going to be a problem finding, again, that unimpaired workforce to really give employers confidence that they should be expanding and bringing their businesses here in Arizona.
We talk a little bit about, we make a lot about, there's been some great things that have happened in the city of Phoenix and other cities in Arizona, but city of Phoenix in particular, in terms of downtown revitalization. Can you talk a little bit about, is there any impact in some of the cities that have gone full-blown legalization, say like Denver or Portland or Seattle, or even where very liberal laws like Los Angeles, San Francisco? What's the story there? Is this something that helps a city's downtown revitalization efforts and creates a family-friendly atmosphere?
Not in any way, shape, or form. In fact, many of those, look at downtown Denver and it's called a no-go zone. So people aren't going to take their families down there. They're not going to move into or be, expanding. We've just spent all of this money and this time and resources of so many people, building up downtown Phoenix. And you only need to Google, downtown Denver, Portland, Seattle. You're going to see what legalization has done. You're going to see the homeless population, the crime rates, all of these issues that are happening that make it where you don't want to, take people down there. We in Arizona, we still thrive on tourism quite a bit. I know we've been hit hard during the pandemic, but tourism will come back, and it's going to be a real problem when you have a downtown that is now affected in a way that other cities have been affected by recreational legalization.
Speaking of that recreational legalization, I've got a teenager in my house, and a few times a week I go out driving with this person who has a learner's permit. Lisa, it's scary out there. I think you're telling me it's going to get scarier.
Absolutely, it's going to be scarier. It's a real concern because, again, we've taken away this deterrent that we've had that's been really effective in Arizona. The concern is that more and more people are going to be driving while with THC in their system. And there's this argument all the time that, people are fine, they drive slower, or they drive, they're impaired. Impaired is impaired. It is scary out there with teenage drivers. I've done that 4 times. We don't need to add people high on marijuana to that list. The other thing that it does that I think is concerning is, so they'll tell you that they've banned smoking it, or they've banned it in public, use in public, but they've only banned smoking in public. So you can still vape, use your edibles, all of that can be done. Consumption can take place in public. It's just the smoking of marijuana that's limited by Prop 207, which brings us back to the problems for our kids in schools and even driving. You're not going to pull up necessarily to a car with it, and marijuana smoke is coming out of it. There are all these different ways to consume it now. And for our teachers, parents, kids are using these. It's tucked in cartridges, it's tucked in hoodies, all of these different places that it can hide, and you don't realize what's happening until it's too late.
I just want to be clear about something, because you're saying that this product could be attractive to young people, but the proponents have said they've taken the extra mile to make sure that it's not marketed to young people.
So they've done some very fine restrictions in it. However, there's no restriction on advertising. So they're going to be everywhere. They're going to be on billboards, they're going to be on television, they're going to be in newspapers, and they're going to be on social media, which our kids are spending more and more time on, especially through this pandemic, where they're on their devices all the time. And those kids are going to see, there's a study that just came out last month that shows that kids are basically becoming immune to the warning signs or the warnings of marijuana and the danger, because they're just seeing it advertised everywhere.
So I can't see the Marlboro Man on a billboard, but I could see advertisements for marijuana under this.
Absolutely.
Okay.
What's the latest research in terms of those who use marijuana excessively, and particularly younger people?
So science shows us that use of marijuana changes your brain, and our brains are still developing well past the age of 18, past 21, all the way up to between 25 and 29 years of age. And the younger you use and the longer you use and the more frequent you use, the more damage you're doing. And it's permanent. It's permanent IQ loss. It's also, though, changing your ability to your mental, your social ability, your cognitive ability. And that's why we're seeing a lot of, it's a psychosis, basically. It's a mental health issue. We're already concerned about mental health issues. This is not going to help with our mental health in addressing mental health concerns. It's going to add to those problems.
Just seems also in a pandemic where keeping as healthy as possible is important. There's just not a doctor, don't want to play one on TV, but it seems that this might not be the best time in the world to start smoking anything.
Not a good idea. In fact, there was actually an article just yesterday in the New York Times that talked about the effects of smoking marijuana in the cardiovascular system, so heart disease. And there was a warning on that. So I think that's why you see that the Arizona Medical Association has come out against this. Sure. The Arizona Association or Academy of the Arizona chapter of the Academy of Pediatrics has come out against this. It's a big problem. More research needs to be done. We find more and more every day that it's affecting our health, not only our mental health, our physical health. So a lot of issues that need to be studied. And I think that's why you see all these doctors and professionals coming out against it.
Well, as we've said, we have a lot of priorities at the Arizona Chamber. Making it easier to get high for fun is not on that list.
We appreciate that.
Lisa, I just want to ask you a campaign tactics issue. This is a tough campaign. It looks like you're running neck and neck. I get that it's a long time honored tradition in politics when you're working on a campaign to complain about the media. But there was an article in the state's paper of record just about a week and a half ago, you know what I'm talking about, where the headline said, marijuana, no big deal. I was really struck by the the thrust of that story, but you've pushed back with it with your own full page ads in the Republic rebutting that story. I don't know if this is a question as much as the fact that I just wanted to point out that I was really taken aback by the way that story was framed.
As were we, which is why we took that drastic step of then buying full page ads to run all weekend to show the updated data, the updated statistics. They were relying on some old studies, and the more recent studies, when you look at those, directly refuted what the article said. And that's one of the reasons that we took the expense on our very limited budget as compared to the big marijuana budget. They've outspent us 5.5 to 1 so far that we're aware of on this campaign. And we did spend those dollars to make sure that people had access to the more current studies and facts that show it's very much a problem and should be concerned. We were floored when it was on the front page.
Yeah.
Well, we're all hoping that this goes down to defeat tomorrow. And I want to again just say you've run a great campaign. You've gotten a lot of good information out there, and Lisa, you always do great work.
Well, we've had a great team. It's been a really good team effort on this, and we've done what we can with limited resources. We'll be out there until 7 o'clock tomorrow night telling people to vote no and to do their homework, because we know that Arizona voters are smart, and when they know what's in 17 pages, they're going to say no.
That's right.
We're hoping that's the case, and we agree you've got to run through the tape, and that's I know that's what you're doing.
Well, we appreciate all you guys are doing at the chamber. I know at my house it's going to be no on 207, no on 208.
Good.
That's the kind of household we need. A lot of.
That's our target.
You.
Lisa, you've run a great campaign. All the best on election day. Remember, Arizona, vote no on 207. If it passes, we're pretty much stuck with it. So we can't go back on this. So please vote no. Lisa, good luck.
Good luck with your driver.
Yeah, well, it's true. It's true. Thank you.
Thanks, Glenn. Thanks, Garrick.